You spring into action.
Hello everyone.
Hi,
Welcome to the next episode of our podcast. I'm Kusha.
I'm Rajiv.
But today we're going to go a little bit more controversial and we're going to talk about rental discrimination and how it particularly affects us, Indians, in the rental market.
Alright, Kusha, I would like to tell our audience what exactly is this issue. Not everyone is aware of the issue.
Yes. So, actually, I'm from Ipoh, and right before I was going to move to KL from Ipoh to Sungai Long. Being an 18-year-old student, I had to find rental properties to rent a room by my university. And that's when I first faced this problem because a lot of people won't even let me view their unit because their agent, after having 2 lines of conversation with me, said that they're not looking for an Indian tenant. So they'll send you like a list of things you have to fill up, like what's your name, what's your race, how many kids do you have, even for like renting a room, just a single room. Because
Who knows, maybe you'll come with a kid.
Yeah,
As a
maybe.
single mom.
Yeah, but right after filling that up, I don't even usually get a chance to speak to the owner. I'm not even given an opportunity to like say hello or anything because I am immediately casted aside because of my race and because landlords don't prefer to have Indian tenants.
Okay.
And I think this is the crux of the issue, is that most people don't even get the opportunity to be considered as a tenant because of their race. And I think it affects us Indians the most, but I'm sure other people have faced the similar issues.
Yeah.
So Rajiv, you're a renter and you have been renting for a long time.
Yeah.
Have you faced this issue?
Yes, I have. Actually, while I stayed in my parents' house for the longest time, and when I moved out, I had my own place. But when I became an elected rep in PJ, I decided to move to PJ to be nearer to my office and my constituents, and I started to look for a place to rent. And it was a challenge, even for me as an elected rep, to find a home because most agents will just dismiss you if an Indian calls you to ask to view the house or if it's still available. The common answer is no longer available.
They straight away say no longer available.
Yeah, so I've got that many times. There's a huge difference when my Chinese friend makes a call for me. Suddenly it's available for viewing, an appointment is set up, and we go see the house. And at that point, the agent finds it a bit too late to say the house is no longer available.
Mine's a bit more crass, the agent is like, we don't want Indians. I don't even get the courtesy not available right now. Mine is just like, yeah, sorry, we don't want Indians.
Yeah, so it is a problem that many people face.
Yeah.
And it's something that the government should address. I personally feel that we should not let this go on and on and on for years and decades more to come.
Yeah, and I think this issue affects the young people a lot, especially when you move from a different city to KL and you can't afford to buy a property, and especially young families even, when you can't afford to buy a property and government low-cost housing is very limited. And it's going to become a huge issue because if you can't afford to buy and you're forced to rent, and if you're not going to be allowed to rent because of your race, then where do you live? Yeah.
Okay.
And you said the government should do something. In your opinion, what exactly should the government be doing to address this?
So a couple of years ago, I proposed that we should have a tribunal. A tribunal for landlord and tenants to seek redress for the challenges that they face. And it's a proposal that I still stand by today. Now, let's walk back as to why we need a tribunal. So, if you ask questions to landlords, and some of you listening here, you are landlords yourself. In fact, a lot of our audience here are not Indians, and I'm sure you may be either puzzled as to why this problem exists, or you understand why because you're a landlord, and maybe you have been tempted to practice the same policy yourself, or you at least know agents who suggest to you to practice this policy.
Has an agent suggested it to you?
Yes, because you see, I'm a landlord. I had my place that I rented out to someone else when I rented my place in PJ. So I had agents recommend to me that I shouldn't accept Indian tenants for my peace of mind, despite me being an Indian.
So your agent, who's a non-Indian, recommended to you, an Indian, to not accept Indian tenants.
Yes.
How did you feel about this?
It's definitely highlighting the deep-rooted problem that we have in Malaysia.
Okay, and this was like a 3 years ago thing?
So closer to 10 years ago.
Okay.
Alright, so let's come back
Things
to
are
this.
still the same 10 years later.
Things are still the same. So, common complaint is they don't pay their rent on time. They don't keep the property in good condition. Things are damaged a lot. But for problems like this, by right, all landlords shouldn't have to face this problem. Those who don't pay rent could be perceived to be mostly from the Indian community, but I'm sure enough Malays and Chinese don't pay rent as well. And people of all walks of life are responsible and irresponsible. Not only one race is responsible and another race irresponsible. So how do we address this problem? Because I'm sure all landlords want their rent paid on time. So the current way is to bring the tenant to court. To file a case in court, you need to hire a lawyer, spend 3,000 to 5,000
hiring a lawyer
ringgit.
is so expensive, it might not even be worth the rent.
It may not be worth. So it's 3,000 to 5,000 ringgit to hire a lawyer. It takes you between 2 to 4 months to go through the whole legal process to take action on the tenant. So what we need is a tribunal. The tribunal already exists for other things in this country. We've got a tribunal for strata property. So if you've got a grouse with your apartment management and you can take up a case there, it's only 100 ringgit to file a case. So you don't need to spend 3,000 to 5,000 ringgit with
It
a
also
lawyer.
works the other way as well. Like if you're the management,
The management
and the
can
tenant
take
doesn't pay the management fee.
Correct. So we already have a tribunal for that. We have a tribunal for house buyers with the developers.
Yep.
So we could also have a tribunal like this for landlord and tenants. And so landlords can get their dues from their tenants without much hassle. So this whole idea that we really need to filter out tenants because we don't trust that they will pay. And if they don't pay, we can't do anything about it. So we really need to filter. And that problem can be resolved and should be resolved with the tribunal. But the problem goes both ways. Because what about the tenant? Tenant deserves to have a house fit for living. And the landlord is often contractually bound to keep the property in a condition that is fit for living. For example, the electrical system must function, the toilets must function, the roof must function. Can you imagine living in a house that starts to leak and the landlord refuses to fix it?
I have a landlord who constantly is like, I will send the contractor over to check the leak, but for now you can place a bucket there.
So that's one problem. What if your electrical system in the house is faulty and the power supply keeps tripping 7 times a day? Your fridge, when you go to work, where the power trips, your fridge is turned off, your food goes bad. Not acceptable.
But a lot of tenants actually do live with it. Like they accept that this is what they have to do because what else is the solution to this?
Then for a lot of tenants who are fed up, who can't live with the condition, imagine if you can't flush a toilet.
Yeah.
How would you live with that?
It'd be horrible.
So then you may have to resort to moving out. But what if you move out early and your landlord doesn't want to give you a deposit back?
Yeah.
Then that's another problem. So tribunal works both ways. We need to protect the renters, we need to protect the landlords. And such a mechanism is due. It's done in many countries in the world, and it's about time Malaysia picked up the pace on democratizing access to justice when it comes to landlords and tenants.
So you mentioned the strata tribunal costs 100 ringgit to file a case, and your case will be heard, and it's as simple as that. 100 ringgit is
very accessible to everyone.
To most people who are landlords and tenants of these properties. So would you suggest the same 100 ringgit for this?
Yeah, I would suggest the same setup. I mean, that's a setup that the government has already put in place many years ago. It's something that people understand, the courts understand, and it can be replicated. So the same tribunal setup, you have got a panel hearing the case, will make a decision after they hear both sides of the story, and the decision is valid under law, it's enforceable, and the party that whatever the judgment is, both parties need to abide by it, and they can't just ignore it.
I guess while both of us acknowledge that this problem has been tied to race unfairly by most people, that the root cause of the problem is the worry that they may not be able to recoup their rent or worry that their property might be damaged. And as long as landlords don't tie it to race, and we acknowledge that that is very wrong, and we don't want people to try to tie being a bad tenant equating to bad tenants are Indians. But when we look further and we look deeper, it's also because they don't want to face a loss with their property. And we hope that this mechanism is a start to addressing this discrimination while also acknowledging that it is very closely tied to race, and we wish it wasn't because we have faced it ourselves, and we really hope that if there are any other landlords listening to this, give your tenant a chance, interview them. Okay.
Alright, so Kusha, we just went through an election and a change of government. how was this handled in the election?
So while other parties did not put this conversation forward as a discussion point, we even had follow-up press conferences to talk about our housing plans. Of course, our housing plans is not only limited to tribunals and tenant protection. It also talks about housing as a whole in general. But I think that the fact that we were able to focus on this one aspect was quite great. And while this voice and this problem was not represented elsewhere, it's great that we got to put it forward. We got to put it on the agenda as like this is something people face on the daily. Like people could be homeless because they're not allowed to rent, even though they are willing to pay for it. And because this problem is as serious as people being homeless, I'm glad Pakatan Harapan put it forward in their housing agenda.
Yeah.
But we're in a unity government, and we will continue pushing it from the PH side. But like acknowledging that this is a unity government, we will not be able to bulldoze our plans in our manifesto through. Yeah. So I hope that the manifesto committee that's going to be led by civil servants will soon give us
an indication if
this is going to be going to be included in the unity government's plan for the next 5 years or not.
Yeah, I think we all have a duty ourselves, Kusha and I, as well as you guys who are listening to this. I think we should engage our members of parliament. So we've got 222 members of parliament. Some sit in the cabinet, but a lot of them sit at the back bench, not the front bench. And the conversation needs to be stirred in parliament, and it needs to build consensus across the board, because we don't have a one person rules all system in Malaysia since the last election. So we need to build consensus towards the important need of a tribunal for the sake of all renters and all landlords. And we are in a situation where a huge amount of people, millions of people are landlords and tenants in this country. A home ownership rate's like 70 to 80%, but that leaves a good 20 to 30% of the population being landlords and tenants.
And despite it having affected that much of the population, it's never been put on the agenda as a bigger problem. It's something people get mad at and talk about on Twitter once in a while. But it's time to focus on solid actions that can help the root cause of the problem.
So share with us your comments, share with us your thoughts, your experiences. We'd love to hear from you, but also share them with your local member of parliament. Nearly every one of them have social media accounts across the board.
Their emails are on the parliament website.
Indeed, they are. So maybe write to them. Reach out to them and let them know that this issue is important to you. Share with them your experiences. So we have as many members of parliament as possible raising up this issue so that we get moving towards solving it.
And having accessible way to recoup your money if you were going to lose that is
an accessible way to have your home fixed. If it's damaged, then your landlord just drags his feet in fixing it.
Yep. Thank you everyone for listening to us today.
It's a pleasure.
As we continue to ramble on different public policy issues and different things that we think need attention.
And if you have suggestions of what you'd like us to talk about, drop us a comment below.
Yes. If the podcast listening mechanism that you listen to has a comment section. You can find us at Rajiv from Malaysia at Twitter, or you can tweet me at Kusalini, Kusaaliny.
If you're going to say Kusalini, Kusaaliny, then Rajiv from Malaysia is RAJIV, the number 4, MALAYSIA. Alright, you can Google Adun Bukit Gasing Twitter and you can find it.
Yeah.
Assuming that you're on Twitter.
Yes. Okay, thank you everyone once again. I'm Kushalini, the APU Chief for Petaling Jaya, and this is
the podcast show.